Welcome to the White Glove demo for the Rivals for Catan, a game in which you and an opponent compete to build the most prestigious principality in Catan. This is the revised and improved version of the Catan card game. Players win the Rivals for Catan by building the most settlements, cities, and special structures, or even by dominating trade or gathering a strong army. It helps if you can avoid being overrun by brigands. Glover, I think we should start with the introductory game and learn the ropes as the first Catanians. Start by sorting the cards according to the image on the back of the cards. For the introductory game, remove certain piles of cards. Put away the Era of Gold cards, put away the Era of Turmoil cards, and put away the Era of Progress cards. Also, sort through the cards with the question mark on the back called the event cards. Separate out the event cards based on the icons at the top. For the introductory game, remove event cards with the icon for the Era of Gold, Era of Turmoil, and Era of Progress. Also, set aside the Yule card. To prepare the event deck, shuffle the remaining cards and place 3 face down. Then, place the Yule card on the deck face down. Finally, place the remainder of the shuffled event cards on the stack face down. To set up for play, place the road cards, settlement cards, region cards, and city cards in the center of the play area, along with the event card deck you recently created. Divide the basic set draw stacks into 4 equal stacks of 9 cards each, and place them in the middle of the play area. For the introductory game, each player arranges their settlement in a prearranged pattern. Each player starts out with 2 settlements connected by a road. These settlements are surrounded by regions. Clockwise from the top, place a gold field, fields, mountains, pasture, hills, and forest. Let's look at the regions in more detail. Gold fields produce gold. Fields produce grain. Mountains produce ore. Pastures produce wool. Hills produce brick. Forests produce lumber. Region cards show how much of a resource you have in storage. The number of resource icons on the side of the card facing you is the number of resources of that type you have from that card. In this position, the card indicates you have 1 wool resource. In this position, the card indicates you have 3 wool resources. You can never have more resources than are indicated on the region card. All cards in the initial setup, except the gold field, start with a single resource available. Regions played later start with no resources. If that sounds confusing, just remember to always play region cards with the small text description facing you in the lower left corner of the card. Now we're ready to play. Roll the numbered die to determine the starting player, then each player draws 3 cards from a single draw stack. Each turn, the active player rolls the dice and resolves their effects, then trades resources and plays cards, and finally draws, discards, and exchanges cards. When rolling the dice, always resolve brigand attacks first. Glover, run before they get your gold! And your wool. If the brigand attack is rolled, players with more than 7 resources lose all gold and wool. Next, all regions with the same number as the production die gain 1 resource. The 3 on the production die matches the 3 on this hilly region and this forest, so those regions rotate to indicate the extra resource produced. If the event die shows a question mark, draw an event card and resolve its effect. This card would allow both players to purchase up to 2 resources of their choice at the cost of 1 gold per resource. A plentiful harvest roll on the event die lets both players take 1 resource of their choice. A celebration roll on the event die lets the player with the most skill points take a resource of their choice. Don't worry, Glover, we'll get to skill points and trade advantage in a moment, because a trade roll on the event die lets the player with the trade advantage take 1 resource of their choice from their opponent. After the die roll, the active player can play cards and trade resources. Many cards in your hand will be expansions that must be played above or below your settlements. like this iron foundry Glover already built. Other cards in your hand are action cards that can be played without paying a cost. This icon indicates an action card that can be played from your hand. Glover has lots of gold, but not enough brick, so he'll use the goldsmith to discard 3 gold and buy 2 more brick. Glover would like to build another settlement, but settlements always have to be connected by exactly 1 road segment, so Glover has to build a road first. Cards from the center of the table, like roads, settlements, and cities, can be played by paying the cost on the back. Glover pays 2 brick and 1 wood to play a road next to his settlement. Now Glover can pay 1 wood, 1 brick, 1 grain, and 1 wool to place a settlement at the end of the road. Now that Glover's built a new settlement, he gets to draw 2 region cards and play them near the settlement, where they can generate more resources. Glover also now has 2 new building sites. For 1 wood and 1 wool, he can build a trade ship. The active player can trade 3 of one resource for 1 of another, but with the ore ship, Glover can trade 2 ore for any 1 other resource. The ore ship also gives Glover a commerce point. Remember when I talked about trade advantage? If a player has at least 3 commerce points and more than the other player, that player has the trade advantage, worth 1 victory point and other advantages. Glover would like to play Candemir to help defend his principality, but he's now short 1 wool. Thanks to the ore ship, Glover can trade 2 ore for 1 wool. Glover now has enough resources to pay 2 wool, 1 grain, and 1 ore to play Candemir. Candemir grants both 4 strength points and a skill point helpful during celebrations. If a player has at least 3 strength points and more than the other player, that player has the strength advantage, worth 1 victory point and other advantages. Glover has played all 3 cards from his hand and used all his resources, so it's time to replenish and trade cards. First, Glover draws up to his hand size. Ordinarily, that's 3 cards. For every progress point on cards you've built, your hand size goes up by 1. So if Glover had an abbey, he could draw 4 cards. Once Glover's drawn up to his hand size, he can exchange a card from his hand by returning it to the bottom of a draw stack. For free, Glover can replace that card with the top card from the stack, but by paying 2 resources, Glover can choose any 1 card from that draw stack. Players take turns rolling the dice, trading and playing cards, and replenishing their hands as their principalities grow. In the introductory game, we play until someone completes a turn with 7 victory points. Glover has 5, 1 from each of his 4 settlements and 1 from his strength advantage. Settlements can be built up into cities by paying the grain and ore cost of a city. Not only is a city worth 2 victory points instead of a settlement's 1, it adds 2 more building sites. With a second city, Glover now has 7 victory points, enough to win the introductory game. Once you've mastered the introductory game, the Rivals for Catan includes the cards for theme games. The Era of Gold emphasizes trade. The Era of Progress features both technological advances and deadly plague, while the Era of Turmoil is filled with battle and emphasizes strength. Glover, what are you doing? I see you've learned your lesson from the Era of Turmoil. These eras are played to 12 victory points. There's also the Duel of the Princes, played with nearly all the cards to 13 victory points. And that's how you play the Rivals for Catan.